Today on the podcast, we are talking about the latest drama in GPT-5, and that is that Sam Altman has actually gone. He's done an Ask Me Anything, an AMA over on Reddit, and he's talked about and basically addressed a bunch of criticism, rumors, basically all the drama that happened with the GPT-5 rollout. There was people begging him to bring back 4.0. There was people talking about the quote-unquote chart crime. That's what they're calling it. I mean, basically, OpenAI had a horribly put competitor, but like the statistics were actually had them lower than a competitor on certain things. So there's some ridiculousness. We're getting into all of this. Connor, what are you seeing with the drama on basically Sam Altman's AMA?
Yeah, it's funny, right? So I don't know. I kind of find it sort of humorous. And by the way, kudos is in some ways OpenAI still feels like, $160 billion startup. I mean, something goes wrong. Sam Altman jumps right on this to sort of like to do an AMA with all the loyal users. So Jaeden, my first gut when I saw this last night was there's a delineation here between like the power users and everybody else. I don't know how you feel about this, but like it kind of felt like, in any organization, right? Like it's the same at, so at NYU Stern, right? So I've been at the business school for many, many years. And what I always find is that, you have a certain small group, maybe 25 of the MBA students who are really loud and vocal. And then you have another, 300 who are just sort of like going about their day. But it's those 25 that tend to guide the ship to a certain extent, right? They're really loud, they're vocal, they have good points, all that sort of stuff. And I think that that's what's happening here. I really think this is the tale of two kinds of users. I think that what Sam Altman discovered very quickly upon rolling out GPT-5 is that power users and everybody else, power users, by the way, I would put in the 2 to 3% category in terms of the population. They just use it very differently. And I think you and I have talked about this as well, right? So the big thing that came out, and Sam had this tweet that came out sort of in the middle of the night or maybe late last night. And he said, here's how he starts it. If you've been following the GPT-5 rollout, one thing you might be noticing is how much of an attachment some people have to a specific AI models. It feels stronger and different than the kinds of attachment people have had to old previous kinds of technology. Now, I don't know about that, but I do know that this is absolutely true. And what people are sort of saying, and some of the tweets, Jaeden, are absolutely hilarious. It's like GPT 4.0 and it has a woman in sort of like this crazy rainbow wig, and GPT 5 and it has her like almost like in goth. And it's the same, it's this kind of like idea that GPT 4.0 was always saying like, you did a great job. Oh my gosh, Jaeden, you're the best. Like, Jaeden, I totally respect it. And GPT-5 is just like, here's the correct answer. And so I thought that was totally hilarious. But so the three things that I kind of like noticed out of this AMA, or I took away from the AMA. Number one, yes, people miss their own models, right? They really, I think OpenAI really underestimated how much people care about specific models. And by the way, I do too. I like the reasoning versus the 4.0. I like to know what they're doing, all that kind of stuff. But again, Sam said it was particularly sad to hear people say 4.0 was the only thing to ever tell them good job, which is also heartbreakingly awesome. And then the agency part, right? The safety with agency part, right? So he points out that people have been using technology, obviously in like some self-destructive ways. And if a user is in some kind of mentally prone state, fragile state, they don't want AI to reinforce that. So what he was talking about was, first of all, treating adults, like adults, but then pushing back when needed. Jaeden, this is huge. I'm reading Empire of AI right now, and they kind of talk about this a little bit. This idea that when somebody is fragile or prone, what is AI doing? Now, by the way, kudos for OpenAI, even for trying this. Grok on the other side of the spectrum is just, hey, listen, like let's set fire to everybody's psyche. So that's always totally bizarre to me. But then the third thing is measuring outcomes. And he wanted to kind of talk to users to get a sense of how they're sort of situating their long and short-term goals, right? So this is a huge shift from just building more capable models, as OpenAI and everybody else has already been doing, to really thinking about user welfare. Now, you can argue, you can sort of say this is cynical, you can say OpenAI doesn't care about the environment or people or anything else, or we can say, hey, they're actually bringing this out into the open and talking about it. So anyway, those are the things that I got out of this AMA.
Yeah, no, I think there was a ton packed in there. One thing that I thought was pretty interesting was people basically there's a whole bunch of people saying like, roll back to the old model. And of course, I know they're just saying that to basically troll Sam. Has got to be like the ultimate reason, because obviously he spent like $1 billion. Better, like, yeah, we're not rolling back to the old model. We can make some tweaks, but so that was kind of, I think, funny. But he did bring up a really interesting insight into why some people felt like the model wasn't actually better. And I think maybe a lot of people that might have tested it on day one or as it was rolling out had the same thing. And the reason I bring this up is because I think this is important for literally everyone listening to know that this is something that happens very often with these AI rollouts. They're rolling a brand new model out to millions of users, and in the case of OpenAI, 700 million weekly active users, like an insane amount of people. They have to do it in phases. They have to be strategic. It's very tricky. They got to switch the server. Like, it's a very big project. And when this happens, basically there's hiccups. And what happens is they announce a big model, tons of new people come on to try it, and they're trying it when there's these hiccups, and they're like, oh my gosh, OpenAI is terrible because it doesn't, like, GPT-5 doesn't do XYZ right, or it was glitchy, or it wasn't giving my answer. And it's like, because they're in the middle of like a rollout to 700 million people. You come back a couple days later, or even the next day, it's smoothed out, and give it like a week, and it's, back to being at its prime, basically. So I would just say, like, when you use a model, if you're using it on day one, give it a little grace because it does get a little bit better, but whatever. I'm not like being an apologist for any sort of glitches. Okay, this is what Sam Altman said, though, that I think is interesting about basically the glitches that happened. He said GPT-5 will seem much smarter starting today. Yesterday, we had a server and the auto switcher was out of commission for a chunk of the day. And the result was GPT-5 seemed way dumber. Also, we're making some interventions to how the decision boundaries work that should help you get the right model more often. We'll make it more transparent about which model is answering a given query. So basically, the auto switcher, the router that chooses what model answers the question, was broken. So they were just defaulting to like the cheapest, fastest model, which, I mean, honestly, when you're doing a big switchover, I'm not surprised by that anyways. So basically, people that are used to getting like really high quality answers on like thinking, we're just getting like a basic AI model and like, oh my gosh, this thing's way dumber. So I did think that was kind of funny. And he said that, quote, we are looking into letting Plus users continue to use 4.0. I thought that was funny. This really couldn't be necessary. We should just move forward with a new model, in my opinion.
People,
but
come on,
whatever. He said we're trying to gather more data on the trade-offs. I don't know. I mean, he's trying to like. I think that's too much, probably people pleasing. Like,
it's appeasement. Jaeden, call it what it is. It's appeasement. And here's the thing. This is the thing that I think is really critical. And I think what you're bringing up here is actually really critical, because when you have these really loud, vocal, kind of like your base, right? Think about this as like politics. Like, your base is always going to pull you to the far left or the far right. It's just what's going to happen. And it's not where most of the people live. And Jaeden, sort of like my big role, what I do kind of like every day across, around the world, essentially, is I'm training big companies on AI adoption. And Jaeden, you and I have talked about this a lot. But my theory on AI adoption is it has absolutely nothing to do with the features or the tech or anything else. The analogy sometimes I use is that it's like, rolling out like a treadmill. Like, it doesn't matter how many treadmills, or how many features are on that treadmill. The only thing that matters is, do people get on that treadmill or not? And my big thing about OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, everybody else, is that it's I'm finding it troublesome that these vendors, who I really do, I love their product, but they're rolling it out and just saying, hey, try these features, or hey, talk to it like a human. And there's a lot of reasons why none of those things work, right? Like, talking to a human, it doesn't work because your brain doesn't function that way. Your brain has a visual cue that this is a search engine. It treats it like a search engine. It's subconscious, et cetera, right? Or just like find use cases. That doesn't work any more than people wake up in the morning and say, how am I going to use electricity today? You can't start with use cases. Anyway, I say all that to say that this is what I do all day, every day, which is why I really like GPT-5. GPT-5 is for the masses. I'm all about AI adoption for the masses. And folks, like, any numbers you see about like this many people are using AI, I promise you, they are so overblown, because I go into rooms all the time. I was in a room a few days ago, or whenever it was, and I was like 500 people. I was like, hey, who knows what's happening at 10 a.m. this morning, or whatever. I was on the West Coast. So 10 a.m. this morning, whatever. One person was like, GPT-5 is rolling out, right? Like, this is it, right? I mean, like, people are not using these tools like you think they're using these tools. They're just not. What I love about GPT-5 is that it essentially forces the issue of getting people to use reasoning. So I'm not as worried about our power users. Like, look, you and me are in that category too, and we're complaining too, so fair enough. But I'm not as concerned about the 2 or 3% who sometimes get ripped out of reasoning when they really need reasoning. I am much more excited about the 95-6% of people who haven't really experienced reasoning because they don't think to try it, or they don't have like the right model or whatever. All of a sudden, this thing starts reasoning for them. So that's where I think that this all lies. This, to me, is an AI adoption play, and that's for enterprise. It's for just the masses getting to use it. to me, this is a great move.
Yep, I agree. And speaking of AI adoption, if you want to help your own organization adopt AI better, the number one thing I personally recommend for this is Connor's AI mindset course. He has it linked in the description, but there are thousands of people. An organization recently just signed up for thousands and thousands of their employees. I think like over 10,000 or something crazy to all get basically this mindset course on AI. It helps you think of new frameworks, how to use these tools. I think it is hands down the best thing you can do to upskill yourself and your organization in AI. So I just recommend trying that out, especially as GPT-5 is rolling out and a lot of people are trying this and finding new use cases for that. So there's a link in the description if you want to check that out. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning into this podcast today. So much is happening with GPT-5. We'll keep you guys updated on everything happening in AI news, and we will see you guys all in the next episode.